this region is just exciting from chips research, prototyping, and manufacturing perspective. And sort of, across the country, maybe there is a feeling that the center of gravity for chips is moving towards upstate New York.
From the Curtis R. Priam Experimental Medium Performing Arts Center, MPACT, at the campus of Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, I'm your host, Dr. John Wexler, Vice President for Enrollment Management, Rensselaer, and this is Crashing the Faculty Lounge. We are continuing our conversation with Dr. Shekhar Garde, Dean of the Great School of Engineering. He's also the Elaine and Jack Parker Chaired Professor in the Howard P. Eiserman Department of Chemical and Biological Engineering. Dean Garde has published over 100 papers in leading scientific journals. Dean Garde was elected Fellow of the American Institute of Medical and Biological Engineering and the American Association of Advanced Science. Last time we spoke about our new aerospace engineering major at RPI and the long-existing relationship RPI has had with NASA. Today, Dean Garde shares the impact the new quantum computer will have on engineering students, the CHIPS Act, and the many great opportunities that our current students have both on and off campus. We continue our discussion with Dean Shekhar Garde coming up on Crashing the Faculty Lounge. Shekhar, last year, President Biden signed a $54 billion bill called the CHIPS Act, and Rensselaer is going to be highly involved in that. Chuck Schumer being the Senate Majority Leader, Senator from New York. Can you talk about the impact the Albany Capital Region will have, the state will have, and then Rensselaer will have in regards to the CHIPS Act?
Sure. So let's think a bit about the CHIPS Act, right? Sure. It was passed last year, as you mentioned, by the Biden administration. And the goal really is to boost American semiconductor research development, and importantly, production of chips in our country. Right. Now, we don't, always kind of recognize or appreciate that chips are really everywhere.
Sure.
From your toaster to microwave ovens, to iPhones, to cars, to airplanes, satellites, chips are just everywhere. You might remember during COVID, during the supply chain challenges, there were a large number of Ford F-150 trucks just sitting in the parking lot waiting for, $1.50 chip that we were not able to produce at the time in this country. And I think another important aspect is that chips are important for national security.
Sure.
So whether it's space, satellite, or defense applications, chips are critical. And so I think it makes sense for United States to invest in a big way to bring chip manufacturing back to this country. And so the $54 billion is the federal government contribution to it. But states are adding to it. And then, of course, corporations are investing perhaps even equal amounts. So this is going to be a big opportunity for United States and STEM institutions as well. I think for RPI and for our region, this is really a unique time in our history. You might know, and I hope you're bringing President Schmidt to this podcast, or our Vice President for Research, Robert Hull. They'll have their own unique perspective on chips because they're experts in this area. But I'm the Dean of Engineering, so I look back a little bit about chips and engineering. And there's just really a strong history and tradition of semiconductor research and education at RPI in engineering. We had faculty like Shyam Murarka or Soli Gandhi who wrote authoritative books in this area. They graduated a lot of students who are now leading, big chip companies, really legendary people. And then, we like to tell that we may have played an important role, or we played an important role in launching the digital revolution with Ted Hoff, RPI engineer, inventing the microprocessor, Steve Sassam, digital camera, Mr. Curtis Priam, NVIDIA, and graphics processor, right? At the same time, I think there's a confluence of factors in our region, upstate New York and New York State. So New York State, our President Schmidt might tell you, has had this vision for last 4 decades for chips research and manufacturing, and they have invested in it consistently over the last 4 decades. And so if you ever had a chance to visit Albany Nano facility, there's been $20 billion of investment. I don't think there's anything like that anywhere in the world to do research and prototyping to make the next generation of chips. And, naturally, it has attracted a lot of companies, IBM, Applied Materials, Tokyo Electron, as well as universities. RPI will be, has already some presence, and we're moving into Albany Nano. In our region, there are other companies like Global Foundries. There's another $15 billion of investment 20 minutes north of us. And then Micron just announced $100 billion of investment in memory chip manufacturing, not too far from us, right? So I think this region is just exciting from chips research, prototyping, and manufacturing perspective. And sort of, across the country, maybe there is a feeling that the center of gravity for chips is moving towards upstate New York. You mentioned, Senator Schumer and Senator Gillibrand as well. They've been, strong supporters of the, work in our state in this area. And so I think this chips investments are certainly helping tremendous activity, research, and education on our campus, of course.
And you talked about it being a national security issue. I think people might not be aware, from your cars to your computers to just everything we touch. I think the number is like 88% of all chips are made outside of the country.
That's right.
And most of that is in Taiwan, which is obviously, if you follow geopolitical things taking place with China, it's a risk, from being able to obtain enough chips. And and so having them being built in this country makes a lot of sense on a lot of fronts.
Absolutely.
From that standpoint, and we're probably behind. I think most people would say we should have been doing this 20 years ago, but we're accelerating it with the commitment of the $54 billion, which is a lot of money, and we're going to be accelerating that. How will chips and our relationship with all these entities in the upstate New York area impact students' opportunities? Across, unless you're the dean of engineering, we can just focus on engineering. How does that impact a student's wherewithal when they come to Rensselaer, when they study at Rensselaer, and then when they graduate?
Sure, yeah. So I think the activity in CHIPS creates opportunities to learn, to do, and then to work, right? In terms of learning, at RPI in engineering, we are launching a lot of new curricula in the chips and semiconductors area. These are the most advanced courses in chips. So we're not teaching chips 20 years ago. This is the modern making of modern chips. We've submitted a proposal to New York State for a new master's degree in semiconductor technology. Wow. And it's in the final stages of review. So I hope we get some good news on that front. Having a lot of chip industry around our area has also created unique opportunities for RPI that don't exist for other universities or many other universities. Professor James Liu in our electrical engineering has worked with industrial partners to launch one-of-a-kind courses where both RPI professors and research and staff from those industries are co-teaching courses. Now, when you have an elective course at RPI, as a dean, I might tell a professor, hey, you must have at least 5 to 10 students before I would approve such a course, right? Sure. In Professor Liu's course, in the first version of it, there were 75 students enrolled in it.
Wow.
Undergraduate and graduate students. And students just absolutely loved it. And so now we have, the next version of this course, Advanced Semiconductor Manufacturing, focused on equipment and processes. And there are 65 or 68 students in that course, and 10 different industrial partners are now contributing to the course, hearing about the success of the first one. So a lot of just new, exciting learning opportunities. You may know, if you ever visit our campus, the listeners might know that we have an awesome clean room.
Yep.
Almost 6,000 class 100 facility, and it is for students. And so experiential learning or hands-on learning is important at RPI. It's one of our brands. And so within the clean room, we have a new program called Beyond, Build Your Own Nano Device. And there's a 4-week course where you actually go into the clean room to build your own nano device. I also talk to young people. You and I are sometimes travel together. Yep. We meet high school students. We do. I have 2 teenage daughters at my home. And if you ask them, about vaccines, they'll tell you perhaps about mRNA technology or how the mRNA is encapsulated in lipids and all that. But I realized that on chips, their understanding is really poor. They just kind of take it for granted. It's in their iPhone, but they don't know much about it, right? And so I think there's a great challenge for RPI and an opportunity for our students to say, hey, I want to learn about chips, and then I want to do outreach. I want to communicate this excitement to young students. This past semester, we launched first in the country a group called Chips Ambassadors.
Oh, nice.
These are part of engineering ambassadors, and these students have just amazing, exciting presentations about chips. What they are, how they are made, where they're useful, and so on. But they have also a lot of hands-on activities, and they're going to a lot of school districts, rural New York, in inner cities in New York City, to kind of communicate that excitement. And certainly that, as an RPI student, that is a great opportunity to not only learn but then convey that to young people.
That's great.
Yeah.
You talked earlier about the uniqueness of where our campus is situated.
Yep.
Everything, in particular with chips.
Yep.
Remind me, I think the government has set up 5 to 9 sites that are chip focused, Albany being one, and the uniqueness being the only Research One institution within 165 miles of New York City, 175 miles of Boston, that is really going to be able to be connected with that. How, talk about the uniqueness of where we're situated. Many times people think, in regards to this, it's not a Silicon Valley thing. It's not a New York City thing. We happen to be in the backyard of where all this is going to be taking place.
Yeah. So, John, I think of our area as a quantum and chips valley, really, from New York City all the way to, Burlington, Vermont,
right,
along the Hudson River. And we are at the center of it here near Albany, right? So Troy, New York. Within about 20 miles of RPI, we have a unique facility in the world in Albany Nano in research and prototyping, and then also the Global Foundries manufacturing site, really. So I think this is just an awesome location for a STEM institution, really, right? I think what you were referring to in terms of CHIPS funding is the NORTEC hub, Department of Defense hub.
Okay.
So out of the $54 billion, Department of Defense has about 1.6 or around $2 billion. And they were out of the gate early, and they said that we want to establish a certain number of hubs around the country to help translate research into actual manufacturing. So from technology readiness level of 3 to 7. NRPI is a founding member of the NORTEC hub with SUNY, Cornell, New York Creates, IBM, and NYU. And so we've just received $40 million for the hub in the first year. And you can imagine
in the first year.
In the first year. And we're competing now for the second year funding with different research projects, right? And so as a student at RPI, right, whether you're an undergraduate student wanting to do research in this area or a grad student wanting to, translate research from your lab to manufacturing, there's just, I think, tremendous amount of opportunity here.
That's great. As you can hear, there are a lot of great things taking place at Rensselaer. Rensselaer is located in Troy, New York, and our admissions office is open 6 days a week for visits. We'd love to have you come and visit and experience all this for yourself. To do so, you can go to go.rpi.edu/visit. To register to come to campus for a visit, go.rpi.edu/visit. Shekhar, many of our listeners, if they've listened to our talk with Dr. Jim Henler, we talked about the quantum computer on campus, and just to rehash, Rensselaer will be the first university to have a quantum computer physically on campus. Mm-hmm. It's being built as we speak. April 3rd through the 5th will be a week of unveiling, and we're very excited about it. Prospective students out there, you will be able to get a selfie with it in the near future. Can you talk about what quantum computing will mean to the students and faculty from the engineering side at Rensselaer and why it's such a big deal?
Yeah, so John, in engineering, we are tremendously excited. Thanks to Mr. Curtis Priam, we will have IBM's Quantum One, right, 127 qubit machine on our campus, right? And in engineering, we are excited because my research is on molecular simulations. I use high performance computing. And with AMOS, our supercomputer at the Center for Computational Innovations, and then quantum computer, RPI will have a really, really powerful computing muscles in different sort of computing environments. CPU-based computing, GPU-based computing, and now quantum computing. It's exciting, right? And if you look at sort of a history of molecular simulation or molecular modeling, the first simulation was done sometime in like 1957, where hard ball, like golf balls, were shaken together to try to understand liquids, right, on a computer. And within 20 years, every engineering department had a bona fide computer simulations person. This had become a pillar of every engineering department, and probably physics and chemistry departments as well, right? Biophysics departments. So now the time scale is being compressed. You can imagine 5 to 10 years from now, quantum computing is maybe going to be accessible to a lot of people. There'll be a lot more applications and so on. And the reason we are excited at RPI Engineering is that RPI is in this game much earlier than anybody else, really. Right? So it gives us access to this unique resource. Another exciting part about this computer is that it is a programmable computer.
Okay.
And so you can actually write a program on this. And so, we had a early group of students. We had sent a call to our campus saying, there's a workshop by IBM who will teach you how to code this computer. And 40 people from, students and faculty from our campus took part in it. So we already have quantum computer programmers on our campus. A lot of new courses and curricula are being developed. So I imagine a couple of years from now, we have a quantum-aware campus where students know how to code the computer. They know what kind of applications, new kind of applications you can have of the computer. And they'll probably imagine things that we don't think is possible today.
And I think you make a great point that this isn't a computer that's going to be used for a few doctoral students. This is a system that will be across the board in the curriculum for all types of students. So students, independent of the field they're in, will get a flavor for it, get an understanding for it, so when they enter the workforce 5-6 years from now, if they're coming through high school, or even a few years from now, they'll have an edge over their counterparts in the workforce because they got to experience it while a student. And that's going to be a unique opportunity, would you say?
I think so. So, quantum computer, the way quantum computer works is fundamentally different from classical CPU, GPU-based computing, right? And so in 1993, there was a mathematician, Peter Shor, showed that there's a really difficult mathematical problem of factoring a 400-digit multiple of 2 primes. And that's what we use in banking and cryptography and so on. And that kind of problem can be solved on a quantum computer. Big excitement, right?
Sure.
Chemists who are studying molecules and reactions, their molecule can be, essentially mapped onto quantum computer as if it's exact replica of that, on a quantum computer compared to what we do today. Very approximate, very long calculations and so on. And so I think one kind of excitement and magic is that we don't know what kind of problems will it solve. It could be in finance, it could be in fundamental sciences, it could be some sort of like a traveling salesman kind of problem, really, right? So I think the appeal of applications to different disciplines is just really far-reaching. Yeah.
And tied into that, when talking about research, one of the unique aspects of Rensselaer is we're a Research One institution, do over $100 million a year in funded research at the institute, but we're 85% undergrad student enrollment. Can you talk about the opportunities for undergraduates to do research and how a student can evolve throughout research from, let's say, their freshman year all the way to their senior year?
Yeah, sure. That's great. Yeah. So we are all really excited about research at RPI. I think more than 50% of our undergraduates do research at one point of their time or another. And so there's clearly tremendous opportunity. The fact that we have more than $100 million of research happening in many exciting areas means that there's a lot of professors, a lot of grad students where there's opportunity for students, right?
Sure.
In engineering alone, we've got exciting research in chips, in energy and sustainability, people thinking about next generation of batteries, distribution and through smart grids. There's awesome research in human health and precision medicine, applying AI and machine learning to diagnose biomedical images or designing next generation of drugs, separating them, formulating them. There's a real strength in future of computing, just outstanding infrastructure people in future computing. And then we talked a little bit about space in an early part of this conversation. So if you're a student, just excited about science, engineering, technology, there's opportunity in almost every field that you can imagine here. Now, you talked about, what's the progression look like from first year to the final year, right? In the first year, most engineers are taking kind of, early courses in math, science, and so on. And so, a professor with a big research lab might think that, gee, I don't know what to do with this person. Like, they don't know yet the language of engineering, right? And so my advice to students is that read up on, what the professors are doing. Go and ask some smart questions to the professor. Say, hey, you're working in human health. I read about I read your paper. Tell me a bit more about it. We love students to come talk to us and ask us about our own research, right? And then if students can find maybe 10 or 12 hours in their schedule in a week and say, look, I'm going to either volunteer or I'm going to do an independent studies project. So you don't have to pay me. I want to get my foot in the door because I love the kind of research you're doing. And I've had many students, freshman students, who come to my lab. And once I see how bright they are, how hard they work, I'm going to say, hey, do you want to continue? You want to stay in the summer? You want to do something exciting? I'll give you more harder problems. Right. I'll connect you with my grad students and so on.
And the other thing is we do have funding available outside of the financial aid in many of the departments and many of the areas to allow students to be able to do that on campus at the undergrad level.
Yeah. So I think a number of grants, we... a number of federal or state grants, even alumni gifts that are specifically directed to undergraduate research. So there is significant funding available. I think it goes primarily to maybe after sophomore year,
sure,
like when you are actually doing serious work in a lab. But yes, there is a lot of funding available. Yeah.
And so earlier on, we talked about internships and co-ops. A lot of the listeners and even people on campus may know, prior to Dean Garde becoming Dean of Engineering, he was a rock star researcher and faculty. He still is, but he has more of an administrative role. And one of the things he did after his doctoral degree was a postdoc, if I get it right, at Los Alamos. And sometimes we talk a lot about internships and co-ops, and that's great, and our students do amazing. But we also have a lot of students who want to be do research like you have done, and maybe lead into being rock star faculty members or deans of engineering down the road. Talk about a student who might have that interest and whether they stay at Rensselaer for their master's and doctoral degrees or opportunities to go out. How are they prepared from the undergrad experience and the research they've done here for the opportunities, and what opportunities are out there in the field? Because I think we know we have a brain drain in science, technology, engineering, and math, especially in the domestic level, much like we talked about with chips, being 88 or more % external to the United States. Talk about the opportunities that students have if they want to stay becoming researchers like you did in your early studies and going on after a doctoral degree and such.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, we have vibrant PhD programs at RPI.
Absolutely.
Right. And we love, if our students want to continue and do a direct PhD, they don't even have to get masters.
Right.
We welcome them.
Sure.
I can tell you that students who have done well at RPI are wanted by every top university. Right. They would love to have our students as PhD students at many other universities, right? So I think opportunities for doing high quality doctoral research are plenty. Having been an undergraduate student at RPI, and if you do a little bit of research, you try to also understand yourself. Like, do you have fire in the belly? When you do research, the problems are very open-ended, right? I don't know what the solution to this problem is, and we are collectively going to figure it out. And so it's very different from going to an exam and solving a problem where the answer is known to the professor. You're going to be graded on it. And so the process is really exciting. It can also be frustrating because none of us knows how to go about it and so on, really, right? And so I think if you have fire in the belly, you love solving hard problems, open-ended problems, students will enjoy doing research and going on to PhD. Another thing people maybe don't know is that for PhD, you don't have to spend a single penny.
That's what I was going to highlight. Yeah. Talk about how the funding works, because a lot of times it's different than undergrad.
Yeah. So all of our PhD students are funded at RPI, meaning that either RPI or external grants from NSF, NIH, or DoD, DOE are funding the research in a professor's laboratory. And that grant will include tuition for our students who are doing PhDs, as well as a really good stipend for being in Troy. And so there's
give an example of what the stipend range can be.
Yeah, so I think if I remember correctly, our stipend for a year is around $35,000 a year this year.
Yep.
Plus
tuition is covered.
$60,000 of tuition, right? So we're giving you like a $95,000 package,
right?
And what we want you to do is just think and work on a hard problem. We just want your brain and your hands to work on. I think it's a fun experience if you have the right kind of personality.
Yeah. And it's just another opportunity and another track. And students don't need to have that decision coming in. It's something while they're learning here, they can figure out along the way. If that's something, to your point, if they have the fire in the belly and the desire to do that.
Yeah, so we have a lot of workshops and events where we help our undergraduate students prepare for graduate studies to help them apply for fellowships and so on. So there's a lot of help in engineering. If you want to go to grad school, come say hello to our associate dean or your department head, and somebody will help you with that. Yeah.
So what question have I not asked you that you wanted to make sure we made people aware of before we left the studio today?
I see. So I think I want to add one more thing about research, right? So why do research, right? So I remember a story of a grad student where she had worked very, very hard for many months to solve a particular problem. It's a biological problem related to a cell. And at the end of the day, she figured it out. And she was going home and realized that she was the only person in the world who knew how the thing worked. And she said it was just amazing. It was a joy about it, right? And you want to experience that joy of discovery. And then, of course, being an engineer, we want to apply that to make life better for people, really. Yeah.
That's great. Dean Garde, thanks so much for letting me crash the faculty lounge. It was wonderful to have you on the show today.
Thank you very much.
And to our listeners, be sure to subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode. Until the next time, I'm John Wexler, and this is Crashing the Faculty Lounge.